Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us here Sunday morning, July 2nd, 2023. And we are live here, every Sunday morning for the Minnesota Real Estate Show, hosted by Mike Overson of Luminate Home Loans, Scott Wolmering, and myself, Ryan O'Neill of the Minnesota Real Estate Team, Remax Advantage Plus. In studio today, Chris Kruger with Credit Life. Happy that Chris is with us here today. And again, I hope your 4th of July weekend is going well. And again, we got a great show today, a lot to talk about. You're welcome to join us wherever you're catching us on social media from a comment standpoint, or 612-294-6949 is how you can join us, 612-294-6949. We're getting ready to go on air. Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans. I'm not here in studio, but we'll be giving a update on that front. Scott, good to see you, bud.
Yeah, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Like Ryan said, we're going to go live. Love your comments, 612-294-6949, or just type it in the feed.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us. We're on Love 105 FM from 10 to 11. Good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It is July the 2nd, 2023, and we are live here at, again, the Love 105 studio every Sunday morning for the Minnesota Real Estate Show. It's hosted by Mike Overson of Luminate Home Loans, Scott Wolmering, and myself, Ryan O'Neill of the Minnesota Real Estate Team, Remax Advantage Plus. Hope your 4th of July weekend is going well. We are, again, live here every Sunday morning from 10 to 11. Welcome your questions, comments, thoughts. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us. This is a live show. It's local. It's real estate related, mortgage related. Today, we've got our credit expert, Chris Kruger with Credit Life on, talking all things credit, student loans. So much to talk about here today. And Scott, good to see you there, bud.
Yeah, good to be here. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're a return visitor, thanks for listening. Like Ryan said, we do talk everything real estate related. We love your questions during the show. So go ahead and just give us a call, 612-294-6949, or you can text us. I'd like to give a big shout out to Mike Overson with Illuminate. Every year he throws a big 4th of July party at his house. He lives on a lake, Crystal Lake, actually, in Burnsville. And just we take it for granted because it's we just go, but it's a big undertaking.
Right.
I mean, he gets like 200 people there. He's got water slides for the kids, bouncies, food trucks. Just a really cool day. And that was yesterday. So thanks, Mike, for doing that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, super cool. And again, if you think of the movie The Great Gatsby, from a party standpoint, I always joke with Mike that party is kind of the afternoon. You got a ton of the kids playing, swimming in the lake and everything, but just a fun party, a lot of fun. And it is. Mike does it for friends, clients, radio listeners, a lot of people that show up every year, Scott.
Yep, and then they do fireworks at night. Yeah, it's a really good event, and just I always keep it in mind that there's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into putting that thing on every year.
Always get an invite. Haven't been yet. It's super exciting, but usually heading out of town for this type of thing. So
yeah, good to have you on. Good morning, Chris. Thanks for joining us. Chris Kruger with Credit Life. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we and good morning, everybody. Again, whether you're catching us on the radio, Love 105 FM, on any of the streaming platforms that Love 105 goes out to. Thanks for joining us again on social media as well. We stream the show on your favorite, all the social media platforms. So thanks for joining us there too. We like to, guys, in the first segment here, always talk a little bit of an update, real estate mortgage wise. Again, Mike is off today, recovering probably from all the guests at his home. But Scott, first segment here, let's talk a little bit real estate numbers, just to share where things are at year over year in the Twin Cities. New listings, new listings in the Twin Cities are down 17%. So there are 1,547 new properties that came on the market this past week. Pending sales down still about 17% year over year. 1,153 accepted purchase agreements this past week, and the overall inventory of homes for sale is down about 10%, 7,379. And then days on market, we're looking at days on market still increasing quite a bit, a 65% increase year over year. Average days on market now is 38 days. And so, again, as we look at, Scott, that inventory of homes for sale, most of the year we were ahead. We had more inventory. And then about mid-May, we dipped below last year, and we've been lower than that. And so we're still, for all the buyers out there, all the agents out there, we're still dealing with a pretty massive inventory shortage.
We are, and it's interesting. Every market has its challenges, and you try as a real estate agent. When we do this on the show all the time with all the numbers and and what we're looking at to try to forecast what's coming. The middle of May was literally a time where everything just kind of slowed. We had that increase from 6.5 to 7.5% in rates, and people just sat on the sidelines. So what was a very fast moving market in pretty much all price ranges, as long as you were marketed correctly and priced correctly, especially in that mid to upper bracket range, in some of the especially southern suburbs, still strong in the western suburbs, has really kind of taken a hit. And like in the last 5 years, before 60 days ago, I maybe got 2 or 3 emails on price reductions. Now I'm getting 15 to 20 a day.
Sure.
So it took everybody by shock. You're basing your number based on what was sold in the last 90 days. That was pretty consistent, and then all of a sudden it just was like somebody turned the spigot off. And now we're struggling to kind of get that new number of what it is to make sure that that when we're representing our sellers that the property sells correctly and for the most that they can get.
Yeah, and it's an interesting market. Again, really, pricing is super important. I think it's hard sometimes for sellers. Maybe you have a friend, maybe you have a family member, maybe you have a neighbor that sold in last year's market, maybe sold 2 years ago. And every market, every price range, every neighborhood, every situation is a little bit unique.
Yeah.
And you need a really good agent. You need a really good broker. You need someone who has the ability to take a snapshot in time right now for your home, your price range, your neighborhood, your school district, all of those things to look at value. And I think that's part of one of the things you're paying a really good agent for. And I think, Scott, we're seeing, again, this market, less of the for sale by owners, less of the super discount brokers, less of the folks in that space, because they're realizing there is importance to having a good agent and broker to help them through the process.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. And you need to understand things that affect value. Interest rates affect value. When we were at 2.6% the first 4 months of last year, that is you can buy a lot more house than you can at 7.5. So what has to happen? A couple things have to happen. Either interest rates need to go back down, which we're not going to see 2.7% again, or values have to go back down because the affordability gets out of whack. If you were buying a $1 million house at 2.6%. Now you can buy a $475,000 house for the same payment. That's what it means. I mean, going from 2.6 to 7.5%, it changes it considerably. And so when you're in that, that 5 to, let's say, 750, 800 price range, that's a change of, thousands of dollars a month on your mortgage payment, not 200. I mean, it's a big number.
Yeah. And again, it's something, I had a really good discussion I was at yesterday. My friend and outstanding agent on the Minnesota real estate team, Mike Hilber, Mike's daughter graduated high school graduation party yesterday. So I was there at the graduation party and just talking to folks at the table. And again, it was interesting. The discussion was, it's unique to see a lot of the buyers now who are really not happy. And I get it at 6.5% rates or 7% rates, when relatively speaking, a lot of the folks who bought years ago or throughout, the last 20, 30, 40 years are used to significantly higher rates. And so their point is, Mike's dad just said, my gosh, if I was a buyer now, I would be buying whatever I could afford. I mean, even at this interest rate, I think, again, it's just happened too quickly for folks. It was so low, so crazy good. Now it went up so fast. So people think something's wrong when in reality, nothing's wrong.
No, it's just, it's the first time. I've been doing this for about 25 years. It's the first time though I've ever seen the kind of the deadly combo where we go from 2.6% rates and 90 days later we're at 7.5%. And we just came out of 2 years at arguably 15% appreciation. So, when you're buying a house at 250,000 at 6.5%, okay. But if you're buying that same house now at 400,000 because rates were at 2.6, that's the combo that's really wrecked people. Is everything's gone up so much, and then you had the jump in interest rates, and people will just push back. They just said, "Whoa."
Yeah, so interest rates, again, Mike Overson, Illuminate Home Loans, is our longtime mortgage partner with the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Him and his team do an awesome job. But rates, again, are the high sixes, low sevens right now is kind of the range of where they're at. That's where they have been, I would say, for a while. They've been adjusting a little bit. But we've seen, and again, we had a couple. You're welcome to join us, by the way, 612-294-6949 by phone or by text. Scott, this one we haven't had. It says, hey guys, how do you feel about Chris Lindahl Real Estate? I'm currently taking my real estate agent classes for his brokerage now at 18. Thanks for listening to our show. Congratulations on getting your license. Scott?
I'll keep that one between me. I would say, I would say this. Oh gosh, I would say
I put you on the spot there.
I would say this: due diligence in anything that you do is a good idea. This would be no different. Whether you're selling your house and you want to meet with 3 or 4 agents to make sure you're picking the right one, or whether you're embarking on a real estate career, you should also meet with 3 or 4 teams and just make sure that the fit is consistent with what you want. I'm not going to say anything bad about their group. They have a different mentality than I do as a real estate team, and that might be a good fit for some people, and it might not. So I would say meet with 2 or 3 people. We'd be more than happy to meet with you as well, and just do your due diligence before you sign up for something that maybe is not going to be a good fit. And I'm not saying he's not going to be.
Yeah. What's happened in the industry too, and I'll just add one note on that. What's become common is a lot of brokers will offer to pay for your coursework and your licensing. And then, there's kind of a negotiated contract of how long, and there's a variety of companies that do this in the Twin Cities. We have not, with the Minnesota real estate team, I have not done that for a few reasons. One, I think it's important for the agent to invest in their career, to show the interest, to put forth some monies towards their career. But also, then the important thing for me is once they become licensed, we then, one of the things we do at the Minnesota real estate team is we pay you a lot more of your commission.
That's right.
And so that's kind of the idea with it. For me, it's just about being totally straightforward on it and saying, look, hey, I'm not going to pay for your coursework, but you get your license, and we are going to pay you a larger percent of the commission than maybe some of the other companies out there. And so it's a little bit of, we've attracted some of those agents over the years that maybe are at companies for a year or two, and they realize, hey, maybe the commission split isn't as good for me.
Yeah. Well, and I would break it down this way. And back when I was Ryan's age, I had a large team, and Ryan's got a very large team. When you talk to agents that were on my team or on Ryan's team, and you ask, who is Ryan working for? They would say for them. And I think if you're going to take anything out of it, I would talk to some agents, and the place you're going, and I'll get off Lindahl, just wherever you're going to go, is that team leader in it for himself, to put money in his pocket, et cetera, or is it a reversal where he actually works or she actually works for you to make you a better real estate agent and to be more successful? And that's the way we've always done it. I believe that that's the biggest benefit for everyone involved,
Yeah.
because if the agents are happy, they stay. If you have a revolving door, if you're talking with a team that is always just churning through agents, something's off.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would look at.
Yeah, congrats on getting your license. So that's awesome. Again, we're happy. We appreciate you listening to the show. We're happy to help you however we can. Yeah, just know you're getting into an industry that's got a lot of upside. There's a lot of promise. And again, we certainly wish the best for the Chris Lindahls of the world and any other companies that are out there too. But again, we appreciate you listening to the show. We're at the first break here already, guys. Can you believe it? 612-294-6949. Chris Kruger's been waiting so patiently here as we talk about all things real estate. You're welcome to join us at any point. We'll be back after the break. Thanks for joining us on social media. Pete, good morning. Pete Schrader, a longtime listener. We appreciate you listening to the show. He said, Happy Independence Day, MN Real Estaters. Thanks for joining us and thanks for listening to the show for so long. We appreciate you, Pete. Another comment that just said, nicely said, Scott. Ha. No name on that one. I can't see the name on that comment. But Chris, good to see you, bud.
Yeah, it's always good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. We're going to be talking a lot. Again, Chris is with Credit Life. A lot going on this week. Big stuff with student loans. And that's a big area you handle. You work with folks from a credit standpoint there. So a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Big decision by the Supreme Court. So it's a little challenging for some folks today.
Yeah.
Or this week.
I think everybody should get their student loans paid back. In fact, I think if you bought a car, I think we should pay for that too. Let's everybody throw our money in and we'll just pay for stuff that other people buy.
Yeah, we know how Scott feels on this issue. It is a good question. Though we did have another question come in regarding VA loans. Again, are you seeing all VA loans be zero down? Or are you seeing some with more down payment, Scott?
I mean, I would say the majority of them. That's the benefit of a USDA loan or a VA loan, is that it is a zero down. So I would say the majority of them are zero down. I think we've seen more VA loans with money in the last couple years, only because the only way that they could compete in multiple offers is to put some money in. But outside of that, in a normal market, they're going to be pretty much 100% zero down.
Yeah, it's a great loan. Outside of what Scott's saying, when you have to compete in the market and you just have to put some money in, even though the VA says you don't really need to, it's just a credit score thing. When you get down in the credit score ranges, then the VA may want a little more security. You got to get fairly low to need that though.
Something I was just reading, and this brought back kind of the Adam Hartung days early in his career.
Yeah.
This was something that he really promoted. Everybody thinks in order to get a conventional loan, you have to put 20% down. Well, of course, that's not correct. You can put as low as 3% or 5% down. The other thing that comes into that, if you're putting less than 20% down, then you've got private mortgage insurance. So on a $400,000 loan, if you put 20% down, you don't have private mortgage insurance. If you put 5% down, you're gonna have a $250 private mortgage insurance. Well, people immediately go, "Oh my God! Well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to put the 20% in." But if you put 5% down, and you took that, so on a $400,000 or $500,000 house, 20% is $100,000. And so if you put 25,000 down instead of 100, and then you take that 75,000 and you make 4.5% on that over the life of your loan, you actually end up ahead about, I think it was $398,000.
Sure.
And that's just something that people should keep in mind, especially if you're sitting there trying to put away 20%. You don't need to, and there's a lot of arguments that actually putting 20% in or 30% in or 40% in financially is not the smartest thing.
Yeah, again, thanks for joining us on social media. Just a quick note for everybody too. Sometimes we can see your name on there. You actually have to download. It's called Restream. You should see it on our post. It's just called Restream.io. It's a way, if you download that, then we can actually see your name. But so sometimes we can't. We're back live on air. Hey, welcome back to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Hope your weekend is going well. It's the 4th of July. You're probably out on the boat, on the lake, on the river, wherever you might be. Hopefully you are enjoying the weekend and doing something fun with family and friends. And again, thanks for everybody joining us on social media too. Had some questions come in, questions, comments, thoughts from a mortgage standpoint. Again, interest rates have been pretty steady at the mid to high sixes, low sevens, as we mentioned. Inventory levels still very, very low in the Twin Cities. And we should add too, again, for if you are remotely thinking about selling your home, you're thinking, how are things in the Twin Cities right now? We're still seeing multiple offers on stuff. Again, properties that are priced well, priced accordingly, that are in good condition, are seeing multiple offers. So though market time has increased, though interest rates have gone up, there's a lot of kind of negative that's out there in the market. It's still historically a really good time to sell a home. And from a buying standpoint, Scott, I mean, we're seeing, again, a little less competition compared to last year. So again, instead of 10 offers on a property, there might be 3. Instead of 18 on this price range, there might be 6. So I mean, it's still a good time to transact, especially with rents as high as they are.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake about it. Last year was the best sellers market we've ever seen in the history of the planet. This is number 2. I mean, so this is still a very, very, very good sellers market. Like I said, the second best one that we've seen in our history. So don't sit there and think that it's been ice cold. It's not. It's just not a complete frenzy because again, when you go from 2.7% to 7%, you eliminate a portion of the market. The other big difference, and to Ryan's point on pricing, you got to understand that the experts on your home price isn't me, it isn't Ryan, it's the buyers that are currently out there.
Sure.
And so what happens when you go on at a certain price, there's a grouping, whether it's 3 people or 15 people or 20 people or whatever, that are currently looking in your price range for the style home that you have. When they come through, they've seen everything else. So if they don't buy, sitting around for 30 days saying, well, I can wait for a buyer. No, those are the buyers. And so after that, after you've got your initial group, you're going to just get a trickling of showings, maybe 1 a week, something like that, because they've already been out to see it. And the only way to combat that is to say, okay, the market is saying we're not worth what we are. We need to get down to another search criteria to hit another group of buyers to hit that sweet spot. And now, hopefully, if you have a good agent and there's no market conditions that just changed, you hit that sweet spot when you go on and you move on with your life. But just understand that it's still really, really good.
Yeah, just a quick note, a comment again from our young listener, younger listener who said he just messaged back regarding his coursework. He said, that's right. They're paying for some of my classes. I'll still, however, have to put forth around $2,000 and I have to stay for a year by contract. So that's how they do it. Again, to get your license in Minnesota, just for those listening, it's probably about $1,500. So again, for people that have joined the Minnesota real estate team, they go out, they take the three courses, they pay the $1,500, to get the coursework, and then they join the team. We don't charge anything additional to have them join. We don't make them sign any contracts or anything like that for staying a certain amount of time. But again, thanks for listening to the show. Congratulations on that. We certainly wish you the best. Hey, excuse me, Chris, we've had some credit questions coming in.
Awesome.
Best way for college age kids to build credit?
Be very, very careful while you're in college because you are going to get inundated with those credit card offers, right? Everybody knows it. For college kids, I mean, it's really the same for anybody. You want to have two universal type credit cards, Visa, American Express, MasterCard, Discover, at a minimum. You don't want a ton of them, and one retail store type account and one installment account. And for somebody that's in college, you really want to limit your expenses. I think I would go with the bare minimum, and then I'm just going to manage them to boost my scores. That means I don't want to max them out. So if you don't have any credit, you might need to start with the secured card scenario, start building so you can get approved for things, or it doesn't hurt to get on, mom or dad's, for example, as an authorized user, just to have something on the report and then get off after you start establishing credit.
Yeah. How about, again, this week, the big decision by the Supreme Court regarding student loans. And obviously, from a credit standpoint, this can affect, this affects a ton of people, friends, family members, neighbors. It's a discussion point right now from a credit standpoint. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely a big decision. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of expected this decision. A lot of people were really hoping and are disappointed. But we've got a lot of people that have student loans that want to buy houses, right? Whether you're a first time home buyer, you want to do a step up. And the biggest, most important thing I can say right now is make sure you know where your student loans are. When the CARE Act went into effect for the pandemic, if your student loans were in default or delinquent status, they've been in that status even though you haven't had to make payments. That's how it's been reporting. So if you're in that status, you're seeing that, best thing you can do is schedule a call with me at bookcoachchris.com. That's right to my scheduling calendar. It's a no obligation phone call. We'll talk about where you're at and see if there's a fit where we can maybe help you do maybe a consolidation or a rehabilitation. Okay. For anybody that is in good standing, make sure you know when your payments start. Everybody's starting to receive those letters stating usually something in October.
So let me ask you this, okay? From a student loan standpoint, I've seen on Twitter, I like Twitter for news mostly, commentary. I've seen on Twitter a lot of comments about people saying how high the interest rates are on student loans and how they you are unable to get those things paid down. There was one tweet I saw that said, "Hey, I went to law school. I took out 100 and X amount of dollars in student debt. It's now 10 years later, and I owe 10K more than what I originally took out." Maybe talk about that a little bit, or your thoughts regarding that.
I always would encourage to make payments on your student loans while you're in college, if at all possible. I mean, get that job, whatever support you need, because the interest on those loans adds up, and if you're not making payments, it's going to build.
What's the normal rate on a student loan?
Oh, that really varies. I mean, I've seen student loans where we've done consolidations for people. Some of the student loans come in at 2%, 3%. Sometimes they're 10, 11. It really depends on when you got your student loan, what the economy was like at the time. And when you're doing a consolidation, the interesting thing is people think that they're going to, if it's a federally insured student loan, they think they're going to get whatever the market rate is out there on student loans. Most of the loans, that's not how it works. When you're consolidating your subsidized or unsubsidized student loans, what they do is they take an average. If you've got different loans that you took out at different times and the interest rates are different on those loans, then they take a weighted average of whatever interest rates you already have. So you're really not hurting because rates are up now.
Sure.
For what you already have on those. They're just going to give you a weighted average on what the rates you already own.
Scott, one comment too. There was a big article in the Star Tribune that talked about with student loans with school, higher education, Minnesota now, and I forget the income amount where people will be able to get higher education at no cost. And North Dakota came out. The interesting comment was from, I don't know if it was the president of the university, said, "Look, half of our football team, no joke, is from Minnesota."
Sure.
And so they're freaking out, of course, because now in Minnesota you can get the higher education for free. Again, and it was a certain income level. I should know, but I think it was 80K, maybe under 80K. But it's an interesting time, guys.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking, we were talking kind of devil's advocate. I mean, nobody in these chairs thinks that student loans should be repaid for free. But one of the things we were talking about is what else could be offered? I mean, if the goal here is to help people that are struggling with student loans, could they do a flat interest rate, like student loans are at 3%, or student loans can be deferred until you are at an income level of X. I mean, something
Yeah.
that would still make them responsible for paying the money that they decided to borrow, which is what we all have to do, but still be able to, help in some way, which would appease more people.
Yeah, we're already at the halfway point here at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. A lot going on and a lot to talk about here today. We always welcome your questions, comments, thoughts, 612-294-6949. Or you can join us on your favorite social media stream. Welcome your questions and any thoughts that you have. We have a great second half of the show. A lot to talk about here at Love 105 FM. By the way, throughout the week, check out MN Real Estate Show if you're looking to buy a home, sell, invest in real estate. We've got free seminars that we offer each month that are in person at our Bloomington office location with our team and our brokerage. We have 20 offices across the Twin Cities. And we also stream that on Facebook as well. So we'll be back after the break. Good comments. Thank you, Karen. Karen Lunzer, awesome agent on the Minnesota real estate team. Karen just said, she was asking the question about college age kids building credit. It's a good point. I mean, Scott, your point's a good one. I mean, I think that was the comment of this tweet is that, look, okay, I want to pay back the debt, and I don't know what this gal was paying on her interest rate, but it sounds like she was not able to catch up. So in other words, the balance has grown more and she's just like, this is crazy.
Well, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, it's the same thing as if anybody's ever had problems with getting behind in taxes. It's almost impossible to pay that because there's so many penalties and so you're making these big chunk payments and you're not even touching the balance. Now, if that's what's going on with student loans, part of the reason that could be going on is that the payments are pretty small. But maybe it's I don't know, it's a negative AM or something like that.
They are out there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Then that could be the case. So yeah, obviously, if you're
like making a minimum payment,
sure, if the
but
payment should
it's
be
not even
250,
that.
but you're paying 50,
Sure.
well, of course, your balance is going to go up.
It's an income-based repayment plan based on your income, and they will go down as far as $0 depending on what your income is for a payment. And so it's really not based on a amortization schedule on when to get it paid off. It's just based on your income. So that can cause, you're still getting charged interest. So that interest just adds to the balance.
So it becomes it becomes a lifelong expense.
Yep.
And I don't think that, and I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that something should be there to be able to have people responsibly pay their debt down. But if they're getting whacked to where, they borrowed 10,000 and now it's at 25, that's not right either.
Well, and how do you get there? The big reason that a lot of people get there is after they get out of college, right? They're done. You've got that 6-month grace period before your payments start to kick in normally, right? And then they put it in deferment or they put it in forbearance, right? Well, you only get so many deferment periods. And if you have to choose one of the two, if it were me, I'm going to choose the deferment because it's a lot cheaper to do. A forbearance, when you go in forbearance, what people don't realize is that compounds daily. So, if I owe $1 today and it's a 10% interest rate, tomorrow I owe $1.10. And then the next day I owe $1.21. Okay.
Yeah.
So it really that's how people's student loans skyrocket so fast.
Had a question. This is an interesting one. My client just did a final walkthrough and the property was not professionally cleaned. Doesn't the seller have to professionally clean the property? That's a good one, Scott.
No, they don't. I think the definition is a light cleaning. If it's been a while since I've looked at it, but I believe it's a light cleaning. Well, as we know, that is going to vary from seller to seller and how clean people are. Personally, I always suggest to my sellers that they have it professionally cleaned.
Sure.
Because it's just a hassle that you don't want to mess with. No one wants to have the buyers show up at a closing at 10 o'clock at 9:30 and say, I'm not closing on the property because it's not clean. Yeah. And have the seller say, well, no, this is clean. Well, it's not clean to me. And so you just want to get all that garbage out of it. But yeah, they do not have to have it professionally cleaned.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in the purchase agreement, they just have the language. They say seller agrees to remove all debris and personal property not included here from the property by the possession date. So that's really the only spot where that's addressed. Now, to Scott's point, at the final walkthrough is where people can say, hey, hold on, we're not going to close unless something's done here.
That's right.
So they have some leverage. But once you close, you kind of lose that leverage. And now it's like, here it is. We'll take the property. So you would think, though, it's interesting. You would think there'd be something in the purchase agreement, but there's not.
Huh? Yeah, for whatever reason, I just always had that light cleaning. Maybe it's just something I've always told my buyers and sellers. But yeah, I mean, it varies from person to person. I mean, I've walked into homes that you are just like, I mean, cat hair in the corners, and the refrigerator is not clean, and it's disgusting. And then we've walked into close, and I would say the majority of closings, the seller does a really good job either cleaning it themselves or having a professional company come in. But yeah, it's one of those things of contention at closing sometimes.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go back live on Love 105 FM. Again, talking to Chris Kruger here from Credit Life. Chris and his team really do a nice job credit-wise, wherever you're at in the process. Good, bad, indifferent. But here we go. We're going back live on air. Hey, welcome back to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. It's the second half of the show. Hope your weekend is going well. It's the 4th of July. Again, we're live here every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Whether you're catching us live on the radio, on social media, streaming, or maybe you're listening to a podcast of the show, we do appreciate you doing so. We just talked during the break, had a question about cleaning homes and what's required by a seller to clean, and there's nothing in the purchase agreement that says specifically they have to clean it. Now, the buyer, again, can do a final walkthrough, Scott, to ensure that things are the way they want it. But the purchase agreement just says seller agrees to remove all debris and personal property not included here from the property by the possession date. So once the buyer closes, they lose some leverage, Scott.
Yeah, they do, and it's interesting that that there isn't language in there. Again, on the break, I thought it always said a light cleaning, but obviously it doesn't. That would be it would be an interesting discussion, because a lot of times what will happen is the buyer will show up at the final walkthrough, the house is not clean to their standard, and they won't close. But contractually, they would be required to, because if all they have to do is get the debris out, then they don't have to wipe anything down. They don't have to clean anything. But I can tell you right now, that's a non-closing.
Hey, Scott, I haven't had this question in a while. Again, 612-294-6949. This one, James texted in, just said, what is your best tip for a first-time home buyer? Best tip for a first-time home buyer, Scott?
Best tip for a first-time home buyer would be to choose the right agent.
Okay.
That's always my first tip, to choose the right agent, someone that has experience with first-time home buyers, that can, it's going to be your biggest purchase you've ever made, and it can be a stressful one. And so you want to have someone that can put your mind at ease, walk you through the process, explain how everything works, so that you're comfortable moving forward. So that would probably be my biggest tip.
Chris, do you have one in mind that you think of?
Absolutely, because before you talk to Scott,
Yeah.
right, you want to know where your credit's at,
Okay.
or Scott's going to tell you to go do it.
Yeah.
So
All right.
You
So
know.
know your credit.
know where your
Talk
credit
to
is
you.
at. That's right. If you need help, that's why I'm here.
All right. You know what mine is?
What is it?
Buy something.
Yes.
My biggest advice, and again, I was a first-time home buyer back in 2001, and I bought a duplex that I still own in Bloomington on Lyndale Avenue. Loved living there. It was hard to pay full price. At the time, it was full price and then some for the property. But the thing that people forget about real estate is time heals a lot of wounds. This property is not ideal, maybe for younger families or pets. It's on a busy road. A busy road, as we know, is a deal killer, Scott. It's not good upon resale. However, in spite of that, over 20 years, the value's gone up a lot on that thing. And so again, for me, it was more about, I think sometimes as buyers, we want to find everything perfectly.
That's right.
It's got to be perfect. This has got to be just and life is not perfect. You don't find, so I loved living there. I didn't really think about a busy road as a young person. As I got a little older, I'm like, yeah, this probably wasn't the best choice, but the value's gone up a ton. Now you've owned it for a long time. So again, it's something to think about. I think with rents, everything in the Twin Cities is like $2,000 or more.
That's right.
I mean, you can't. I mean, it's just rents are expensive.
Yeah, there was an investor that I really respected. I won't say his name on air, but he said that exact same thing. He said if somebody wants to get into buying investment real estate, grab a dart, go out to a neighborhood, throw it in whatever house it hits, buy that house. He's like, that is as easy as it is on the show, and we've been doing the show for a long time. So this is probably 15 years ago. We had a guy that lived in his mother's basement, and he would call in all the time on the show, and he would always refer to himself as a real estate investor. And finally, I said, Joe, I said, how many properties do you have? Well, I'm not buying yet because I think this is going to happen with the market. And I said, well, then you are not a real estate investor. Please do not call the show again until you've bought a house. Go, I swear, because remember, it was all the time. And he's looking to
he may be listening.
He's looking to hit this like
Sweet spot.
window of the best deal ever. And I'm like, go buy a house.
Well, that's the hard part. Again, if you're a listener and you are analytical, generally we found, again, having friends, college roommates of mine they were all, the engineers. I was the non-engineer, and they would analyze and say, look, guys, nope, I think this is not right. And I think with real estate, the other thing, if you're a first-time home buyer, is give yourself a year or 2 or 3 to own the property. If you're looking at to say, hey, I need it to go up by 5% within a year or whatever, no one in good faith can predict exactly what's going to happen. You can look at history and trends, but Scott, you're right. I think it's, as investors, there's so much analysis that's done without purchase.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this forever. So I won't say how many rental properties you have. You have a lot, and they were purchased probably at the worst 2-year time period.
Right.
2003 to 2005. That was the highest of the real estate market. And so, obviously, during the crash of 07 and 08, they lost a lot of value, but they still cash flowed. You didn't have to sell them. Now now they're almost paid for. That's the reason why you buy investment property. So, and any analyst will tell you that. They'll say, look, waiting is never the right move ever. Just go buy a rental property, or as many as you can. And it's a long-term investment anyway. But human nature is an interesting thing.
Yeah,
because that's what it really boils down to.
Yeah, it is. Another good question came in. Jocelyn had messaged us, said, hey guys, what are your thoughts on buying a condo? That's a good one. I don't know. We haven't had that in a little bit. Scott, you got anything that comes to mind? Thoughts on buying a condo in this market?
I'm assuming she's talking for personal use.
Yeah.
If she's buying it for personal use, I think it's a lifestyle choice. It's a difference. Traditionally, condos have not done as well as single family homes in appreciation and so on. But that's not the reason why you buy a condo. You buy a condo so that you can lock the door and you can leave, and you don't, everything is taken care of for you. And so it just depends on your situation. From an investment standpoint, it depends on the association. Some associations are a little bit tougher, especially on having investment property. But overall, I think any piece of or real estate that you buy is a good decision. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just going to say, from a condo standpoint, a lot of benefits to a condominium, from the exterior maintenance, the roofs, all those things are paid by the association itself. And so you're not having to put a new roof on like a single family homeowner, perhaps. Some of the pitfalls, though, are perhaps knowing the association. What's going on with the association?
Yeah.
Are there any assessments? Do they have any restrictions on it? When you buy a condo or a townhome, you have to know what you're buying into from an association standpoint. And so it's important to know that picture. You get 10 days in Minnesota to review those condo documents. to look at the association. But I think you're right, Scott. It is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle choice change. Again, the association fees could go up over time. You know, the budget, the board comes up with the budget, so they look at that fee that could increase on you over time. But I think for a lot of people, they say, look, I don't want to goof around with the lawn. I don't want to goof around with all this other stuff. Have some pay for it. So condos, townhomes, not a bad choice.
And there's some good values out there on condos.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing is for your buck right now. You know, I sold a really nice townhome last year, for a client of mine that was going to pay cash. And it was $140,000 and it was really nice.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you can't buy that anywhere else for that number.
Yeah, absolutely. We're at the final break at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for your questions, comments. You're welcome to call us 261-294-6949. After the break, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Chris Kruger with Chris Kruger Credit Life, about what he and his team do specifically. We've talked about some student loan stuff, first-time home buyers, how to improve credit. We'll be back after the break. Chris, what else is going on with you guys? Credit Life. What else? How else can you help our listeners?
One big thing is, there's a lot in this market. I mean, just with what's been going on with the economy, there's a lot of new business owners, self-employed. So, we've been doing it for a long time, but we're pushing more just because of what's been going on.
Yeah.
The first step to getting business credit, so that you're running your business on business credit, not on your personal credit, because if the business fails, you don't want the business taking you down personally.
Sure.
Right. So we help people if they need it. We help people get their personal credit set up so they can then get their business credit set up, which will help them do, and have that separation. And that's huge, right? You want access to, business credit cards, business lines of credit, and get everything set up so that you don't have to have a personal guarantee on that stuff. So that's something that we've been pushing more. And when somebody comes to us, we're kind of asking, just trying to feel them out. Are you W-2'd? Are you self-employed? What do you do? You've got that side hustle. Is that going to become something permanent? What kind of help do you need? Right.
How about from a cost standpoint? If people are listening, you're thinking, yeah, what is this? I mean, what does it cost to do this from a credit standpoint? Maybe I'm looking to buy real estate, start a business, whatever it might be.
So there's a lot of companies out there that will help. They make you do a lot of the work. Credit Life, we actually kind of hold your hand and get you through to the financing and actually help you obtain the financing. Once your personal credit is established, the business credit, is established. So we don't charge near as much as a lot of the companies are out there. So for an individual, it's $2,997.
Okay.
And that's it. Unless you're going to need extended service beyond getting all that done, and usually all this stuff can be done in about 6 months.
And so is it a weekly meeting you have with people, or monthly you talk to folks?
Yep. So it can be, it's usually probably not weekly because there's usually steps, right? So like I said, we're going to kind of handhold or guide them through, and there are things that the business owner has to do to start establishing this stuff. So we actually get a list, kind of a check mark list. It's like, okay, do this, do this, do this. Then we want to make sure we're coaching them through their managing these things to get done, and also that they're managing them in the right way so that we can help them get that business credit they need as soon as possible.
Okay. Interesting. So, and is it a lot of work for the person during that 6-month period? I mean, on their part to
it's not a lot of work. It's just, it shouldn't be anything unexpected for anybody that's going to be a business owner, right? Do you already have your LLC? If not, you got to get that set up. If that's what you're going to do, LLC, corporation, whatever you're going to do, right? You have to do the paperwork. And so what we do is figure out where you at, and then in order, what steps need to be put in place.
Okay. And how about from a buyer standpoint? If we're not looking at business credit or anything like that, just from a buyer standpoint?
Absolutely. The best thing to do is, if you're not sure about your credit, get with me. We do that no obligation phone call. Let's figure out where you're at today, what needs to happen. I mean, the biggest mistake that most people make is they've got charge-offs or collections on their credit report, and they're like, I'm just going to pay everything off, right? Well, you cannot make those positive on your credit report. Those are already highly negative, and if you pay on those, typically, if they have not been reporting every month and 6 months have gone by or more, you can pay those off and your scores actually go down, not up. So
interesting.
Yeah. So
That's weird. Isn't
It
that
is
weird?
weird.
I've never understood that. It's
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
got negative
So
stuff on there.
best
So you try to pay
practice-
it.
Yeah, you don't want to pay it first necessarily. We're never going to tell anybody not to pay their legitimate obligations, but there's a strategic way to go about it. Best practice is to investigate those, to get those deleted from the credit report first, if at all possible. First, then if they're within the statute of limitations, pay or settle those to keep them from.
Do you ever
go
help
back.
pay it for people?
No. I wish I was a philanthropist like that.
There we go. We're going back live on air. Hey, welcome back to the final segment of the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Hope your weekend is going well. It's July 4th. We appreciate you listening to the show. The Minnesota Real Estate Show is here every Sunday morning, 10 to 11. If you're looking to buy, sell, invest in real estate, we have a top agent on the Minnesota Real Estate team that would love to help you. Even in this market in 2023, things have been slower than the last couple of years, but things are still happening. Deals are still closing. People are still buying and selling. There's still activity in the marketplace. And so we would be happy to help you and your family however we can. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. Scott, we've been talking to, again, Chris from Credit Life. From a buyer standpoint, you just made a comment. If you're a home buyer and you've got charge-offs or negative things on your credit, you said don't pay those off.
Not right away.
Okay.
Because again, if it's a legitimate debt, you may want to pay or settle those. The issue is that when they're on your credit report, they're highly negative, and depending on when they were last reported, your scores could go down when you actually create that activity on your credit report by touching those.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the best practice is to get them removed first.
Yeah.
And then if those are legitimate debts that are still within the statute of limitations, pay or settle those to keep them from getting transferred or sold to another collection company, for example, who then puts it back on the credit report.
So how does that work though? Because I've always heard that. So isn't it kind of the you blink before I blink thing? I mean, you say, "Well, I want you to remove it, and then I'll pay the debt off." And the company's like, "I'm not going to remove the debt until you pay it off."
Yeah, most of the time it's forcing a collection company, for example, through validation. Do they have the right to collect? Can they prove that they have the right to collect? And then with the credit bureaus, is it reporting accurately?
Sure.
So a lot of people get told, if you listen to the radio, you watch it on TV, that negative accounts stay on your credit report for 7 years, right? That's a half truth. What the Fair Credit Reporting Act actually says, and this is not a quote, just the gist, is that negative accounts may only remain on a consumer credit report as long as 7 years and 180 days from the date of first delinquency. So there's nothing to say that it has to be there at all. But there is also another part of the Fair Credit Reporting Act that says the bureaus, credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, for example, have to have due diligence to reasonably ensure 100% accuracy. Well, everybody will say, if you listen again to the radio and the TV, and the gurus that are out there, they'll say, "Oh, 90% of everybody's credit report is 100% accurate." Sorry, I completely disagree. I would actually flip that script and say 90% of people have errors, not reporting accurate.
Wow.
Yeah. They just don't want you to mess around with your credit report. Honestly, the Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, with the amount of data and the amount of people and files that they have to deal with, they can't hire enough people to try to keep up with all that.
Yeah, they don't have a lot going on though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, if you're at Equifax, you know what I mean? It's like everybody's connected to these companies.
Well, and I've always thought through the years, and anybody that has ever had a blemish on their credit knows that it takes a button to push it to screw it up,
Yeah.
and takes months to get it corrected. And obviously that's what you guys do to help.
Yep.
But I've always thought, I don't know that you should have to get like a certified letter that says you're going to be delinquent on this account, because the one that sticks out to me is I had a car payment. This is back a long time ago.
It's a blemish.
It was a blemish, and I made the car payment, and the company that I wrote that I paid had switched the numbers, so it was their mistake. So they reached out and said, "Oh my gosh, our mistake,
Our
blah
blemish.
blah, our blemish." Well, then it was on my report. It took me like 8 months to get that stupid thing off there.
Hey, before we forget,
Yeah.
I know we're heading to the home stretch of the show. Again, the best way for people to connect with you and your team at Credit Life.
Absolutely. So get on my calendar at bookcoachchris.com. You can also check out our website at Credit Life. And remember, there's no T in the word Credit Life. So CreditLife.com. Check us out. do your research, just like Scott was saying about checking out real estate companies.
Yeah.
You should do your research if you're going to ask somebody to help with their credit. Check out our website, our reviews, check out the BBB, do a Google review research, right? A Google search for our company. Look at the information that's out there. Then get on my calendar once you see the great reviews that you have. I mean, no company has 100%, right? But I think if you compare what we've got going on, you're going to be very impressed.
Hey, we had a comment here, Pete, on our social media stream. I had a comment says, if you're thinking about buying an apartment, actually, let me look at that. He said, if you're thinking about buying an apartment building style condo for a rental, there's a lot of competition from traditional apartment buildings. That's a really good
That's
point.
a good point.
There's a ton of new buildings popping up everywhere. It's amazing the number of new apartment buildings that are there. That's a really good point from an investor standpoint. Versus the single family home, the townhome. Man, there's a lot of people looking to rent those properties.
That's right. Yeah, it is amazing to me the amount of apartment buildings going up around the Twin Cities, and the rent that they're getting is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, just a 800 square foot place in Lakeville, is $2,300 a
Yeah.
month. And they're full. It's nuts. And I know there's different reasons why people rent, but I've never understood if you have the option of buying, why you would rent in this market. And in order to rent, you have to have really good credit at these places to be able to get a rental. So it's not credit that's holding them back. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, we did have another comment says, I thought there was a change that said the credit bureaus couldn't ding your score for paying a collection.
No, and probably what they're thinking about is the recent changes that the credit bureaus made regarding medical debts.
Okay.
So that as of July 1st of 2022, any medical collection that is a zero balance that gets reported to the bureaus as a zero balance, the bureaus are just going to outright delete that collection account. So it's like it was never there. Okay. As of May of this year, any medical collection, they already have done this. So if you have this on your credit report, it was just something that they missed. But as of May of this year, they removed any medical collection that was under $500. So I'm not sure if it's $500 or less or under $500. I have to go double check. But that doesn't make the debt go away. Anything over $500, still, if you get it to zero, then the bureaus are going to remove that.
Hey, you've done a great job there, young man. Thank you for joining us today. We're
Absolutely.
grateful for you and your team. At Credit Life, Jared Havens does an awesome job. Really appreciate you guys. Hope you can do something fun for the 4th here.
I am heading out of town.
All right. Good for you. Good for
Awesome.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Scott, last couple minutes here, last thoughts. For people in the market, again, they're thinking about it. We're into July now. It has been for most of the Twin Cities, all of our friends at the different real estate brokers, it's been a slower first half of the year. 25% down, 30% down in closed transactions. What do we think second half of the year?
Well, we've been predicting it all year that or at least I do, that I believe that we're going to have a kind of a strong late summer fall. We're going to be almost a year now that rates have been, high sixes, middle sevens. It's going to start to resonate with people that's going to be our new norm. And I think that's starting to happen. So I think we're going to have a strong end of summer fall. We're not going to rebound 30% that we're down, obviously, but I think we're going to start to see it ticking up that direction. I think we're going to continue to see some price corrections. It's getting harder to, we're talking about throwing darts. It's getting harder to throw that dart and pinpoint where that sweet spot that's going to elicit the most offers is.
Sure.
And so I think we're going to see quite a few more price reductions before we get back to being able to establish where our line's at.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it is going to be a very good second half of 2023. Again, if you are in the market buying, selling, investing, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to the Minnesota real estate team. We'd be happy to help you. Scott, great job on the show as always, buddy.
Yep, you too. And happy 4th, everybody. Everybody have fun. Have a safe 4th.
Absolutely. A safe 4th. Grateful to all of the folks that have worked so hard, all of our servicemen and women, everyone who has done so much for our country, for the freedoms that we all enjoy. Thank you to those of you listening that have served, and family members, friends. We are grateful for you. So this has been the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be back next Sunday, the 9th. Again, big thanks to JoJo, who comes in every Sunday, has to deal with us jib-jabbing about real estate. This has been the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us on social media, Pete, and everybody else. Karen Lunzer, thank you, friend. Karen's an awesome agent on the Minnesota Real Estate team. Thanks for joining us. A variety of other people who have commented. Thank you so much. Guys, we'll be back next week.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Happy
Have a good
4th. Yeah, have a great 4th, everybody. We'll see everybody. Take care and have a good weekend.